Welcome to the Sports Card Talk Show. Sports Card Talk Show with Kevin Anderson and Lauren Walker, the Skol Brothers.
Welcome to episode 48 of the Sports Card Talk Show. As you can see, we kind of changed things up a little bit here. Northern Minnesota gets a little cold, and little propane heaters only do so much in the garage, so we made the switch.
It feels nice.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Today we are, it's Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore Day, yeah.
Mount Rushmore Day, and we have Tyler at SikWicked Sports helping us to represent the Falcons.
Yeah,
So,
Atlanta
Falcons. Yeah.
Yeah, this should be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, should we get them on the line?
Ring-a-ling ding-dong.
All right, we got Tyler on the phone. How's it going?
That's pretty good. How about yourself?
Good, man. We're glad to have you on. Help us out with this Falcons Mount Rushmore.
Glad to be here. It was a lot tougher than I thought.
We find that when we have people dive into it, we're like, man, I didn't realize. Yeah.
Going through, I was like, oh yeah, I'll breeze through this, and then was looking at it and comparing players, and I was like, oh man, like you leave off of the list, and then so it came down to me just thinking on certain things, and I'll go over a few of them here, while I'm going through my list. So.
Yeah. So why don't you tell people how to find you on social, your name and where they can find you?
Yeah. So my YouTube channel is SikWicked Sports, and I have Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. It's all SikWicked Sports. The Twitter handle, I think, is at SikWickedS. And then for, people, I have had people message me before that, I emailed you, never got anything back. It's Sik is spelled S-I-K, so there's no C in SikWicked. So,
right.
But yeah, best way to contact me would be, either comment on a YouTube video, or if you want to chat or something, the best would be Instagram.
Sure. Awesome.
Yeah, that's
great,
my
man. Yeah. So, I think we better dive into this Mount Rushmore. Start with the honorable mentions.
Yeah, so honorable mentions, and I didn't put them in any specific order. I couldn't go through trying to rank them.
Yeah.
4 of each. So
right.
My first honorable mention I'll have is going to be Michael Vick. And he was tough for me because I felt like with him he could have been, on Mount Rushmore in the honorable mentions or completely left off. He was a polarizing player, changed the game, 3-time Pro Bowler with the Falcons there. He had the most career rushing yards for a quarterback, and he had the most rushing yards in a season with the Falcons in 2006 at the time. I think it still stands. He had 1,039 rushing yards. And one of my favorite plays, I'm sure y'all remember, was an overtime against the Vikings. He split the defenders and made them run into themselves for the touchdown. That's one of my favorite plays. But the reason I had such a hard time with him is he did so much for the franchise and really, helped build it up after, the Dirty Bird 98 Super Bowl run. We started declining a little bit. And then he came back in and we started playing a little better. But then, with the whole dogfighting thing, it left us in a mess. Which wasn't all his fault. We did the terrible hire of Petrino and he left midway. But, we went through Joey Harrington, Doug Johnson, Byron Leftwich, just all kind of things. But I do like his story. He came back. I'm a dog lover, so I wasn't happy about that. But he made it right. He served his time. And but it also got us Matt Ryan, who's one of my favorite players. So we did build back up after that. But that's why he was one that it was hard for me, because what he did for the Falcons. And then how he hurt the Falcons, he kind of just, it was brutal there. But I love him as a player, a phenomenal athlete. I still remember when he was with Philly having that massive game with the 4 touchdown passing and 2 touchdown rushing, and just but yeah, he's one. After debating, he had to be on the honorable mention. I felt like that was a good spot for him.
You see Michael Vick now, like if you see him on interviews or on TV, he's got a very humbling personality. He's really nice to listen to. So I think he's, what's that called? When are you fix your image kind of since the dogfighting thing?
Right. Yeah. He has.
He rehabbed his image, I guess is maybe how you say that. But
rehab, repair, whatever you call it. Yeah, he did. And I mean, he's been in charities for that, for what he did. He's donated a lot of money and time. And like I said, I'm all about second chances if you're showing you're willing to change. And, he admitted what he did was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And, he came back and was a strong player, even though it wasn't with the Falcons. But, that's the good thing you like to see, So, yeah, he solidified that spot there, after just going back and forth. The next guy I also had a tough time with because that's going to be Tony Gonzalez. Now, Tony could also have fit in the top 4, but the reason I left him in the honorable mentions is even though he was so great with Atlanta for 5 seasons, his first 12 where he really established himself were there at Kansas City.
Right.
He was he's Hall of Famer, and he was with the Falcons from 2009 to 2013. 4-time Pro Bowler with the Falcons. And, like I said, he was already going to be like a Hall of Famer before he got to the Falcons, but what he did with them, he didn't miss a beat, and he was so, he was 32 to 37 years of age is when he was with them, but he was in the all-decade team in the 2000s, and, part of that, was with the Falcons, so, and then he had 409 receptions, 4,187 yards, and 35 touchdowns in 5 seasons. So really played a big part. And, if he would have played a little more, I would have had him in my top 4. But just because,
he's probably going to end up on Kansas City's Mount Rushmore, probably. So.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, but he's a great player. Love watching him. And I love the players that actually stay in the game afterwards, and you'll see him doing interviews on, and a little announcing here and there, and I do enjoy that. And he's a really good guy in the community and things like that. So
awesome.
So that's my my second honorable mention. My third honorable mention is Roddy White. He was a lifer for the Falcons there from 2005 to 2015. And when he left the franchise, he was all-time leading receiver in receptions and touchdowns. So he's a 4-time Pro Bowler. He was an All-Pro in 2010 and led the NFL in catches with 155 receptions. And he was so consistent, and he had 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons from 2007 to 2012. Mm-hmm. And, he really gelled with Matt Ryan when Ryan got there in 2008. So they had a really nice connection, and that was good to see. And, like I said, he was the franchise leader for, this guy you probably heard of, Julio Jones.
Might have heard him.
Yeah, Julio broke it this year. I think Roddy still has the receiving touchdowns. Because he has 63, and I think to date, Julio's around 55. Mm. And that's I think that's current when I was looking at the stats. So, and he's just one of those guys, I've actually, one of my older jobs, I've been to his house, not inside or anything, but I was next door working on a house next door. And but he's a nice guy, had a big Falcons logo in his yard. And like I said, he was always... Yeah, he was always a lifer, Falcons guy, and I just enjoyed watching him play. And I was upset the way it kind of he left. Not on his end. The franchise kind of didn't really want to re-sign him, and he didn't want to take less money, and then he ended up not being able to find a job anywhere else. So,
Yeah.
But he's just, you come in and you set records like that, it's easy to put you on the honorable mention. And like I said, he's one. It was just so tough to differentiate these, and so,
Oh yeah.
so he was the third, and then my final honorable mention is Claude Humphrey, and now he's a guy that was before my time, but I am one that I'll watch YouTube videos on older players, and I still watch the 1998 NFC Championship game. That's one that I watch regularly.
Yeah.
Rub
it in, dude.
But he was a Hall of Famer in 2014. In 1968 he was the Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's in the Atlanta Falcons Ring of Honor as of 2008. When he retired, sacks weren't an official stat, and I think he had 126.5 or somewhere around there. So he did work.
Oh yeah.
This is the one guy that I'd never heard of before we started doing the Atlanta, looked into the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm glad that you mentioned him.
Yeah, and see, like that was one of the good things. Like, there's some of these players that I'd heard of, but while like doing all this research, like, why you heard of them now,
Yeah.
Because with me, I was born in '86, so when he started out in '68, I wasn't even a thought at that point. So,
Right.
Yeah.
But going back and learning about some players on your favorite franchise and what they did, it's been really awesome, and I've really enjoyed it. So thank y'all for asking me to do this. But yeah, he was a 6-time Pro Bowler, 5-time first team All Pro, and 3-time second team All Pro. And so he played 10, I believe it was 10 seasons with the Falcons, and then finished it off with 3 with the Eagles. But most of his work came with the Falcons, and so he was just one of those players that I just, even though like I considered like maybe not having him on there because it wasn't something like I grew up on, but like hearing out of him and just like going over everything, I was like, there's no way, like
Yeah.
good, like because I was trying to keep, and most of them are people that I did know something about, which back when the Falcons first became a franchise, they weren't that great anyway. So, but they did have some really good players. But yeah, that's going to be it for my honorable mention list.
Nice.
And then this next list was two of them. I had a pretty good time with these. Like I said, I was going through on who to put where. But my first person on the Mount Rushmore is going to be Deion Sanders, and he was another one I was kind of like, well, he only played a few years there with the Falcons, when he came in the league, but he was so polarizing when he did. He like changed the game for cornerbacks and how they played, and just his intensity and passion really, it translated on the field. And then not only what he did like for the Falcons, but being a Braves fan, he was multi-sport.
Yep.
He would go from playing a football game to playing a baseball game for the Braves that night, and so it was just one of those. It's like what he did for the game, ultimately, like is why I added him onto this list. He's a Hall of Famer.
When you brought him up, the Falcons and the Braves, I just recently I showed my kid the Tim McCarver interview in the locker room when Dion douses him with water. Anyway, yeah, that's just I find that a great media moment in sports.
And I ain't gonna lie, he was full of himself.
Oh yeah.
But that's what made him, who he is. He thought he was the greatest. He proved to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest cornerback of all time. It was an all-decade team for the 90s. He Falcons Ring of Honor in 2010. And he played with the Falcons from 89 to 93 and was a Pro Bowler from 91 to 93. And like I said, what he did, like special teams as well, returning punts. And like I say, he just changed the game for defensive backs and how they played. His intensity was what really I enjoyed watching. And like I said, I was still pretty young, but I do remember watching him play with my dad. Mm-hmm. And, since then I've went back and watched some old, clips that you can find on YouTube and stuff.
Right.
So he was one that I felt like needed to be on there for what he did, not only for the Falcons, but for the sport.
Another memory of Dion for me is Anthony Carter caught a ball for the Vikings. And he was a pretty fast guy too. And it looks like he's going to score a touchdown. And out of nowhere, it looked like the screen was standing still and Dion just blew by everybody to catch up to Anthony Carter and tackle him. And, Dion wasn't known for his tackling, but he definitely made that tackle. The guy was fast.
He had some blazing speed.
Yeah.
There's about that, so that, he was amazing. So wish we could have held on to him, and but he had a good career, I would say. So,
yeah.
It's hard to say which Mount Rushmore you would put Dion on because he split his time so evenly between so many teams.
Right. And that's why that was another reason I had him on here, because I tried to base it on how long you're with him. But with Tony Gonzalez, 66% he was with another team.
Right.
Whereas Dion, it was more evened out, and since we drafted him and he became known as prime time there with the Falcons, and what he did for Atlanta, that's why I was like, yeah, he needs to be there. So
cool.
And then my next guy is Tommy Nobis, Mr. Falcon. He was the Atlanta Falcons' first ever draft pick in franchise history. He is in the Falcons Ring of Honor as of 2004. He spent his whole career as a Falcon. He is on the NFL All-Decade team for 1960. He 5-time Pro Bowler. He first-team All-Pro in 1967, second-team All-Pro in 68, and he was the NFL Rookie of the Year in 1966. His first year in the league, as a rookie, he averaged almost 18 tackles a game, which is pretty solid.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, with him, he was one of the played his whole career as a Falcon. First draft pick, Rookie of the Year, and he was a consistent contributor and was just hard-nosed and, played the game the way it should be played. So he's one that I definitely had to put in there. And he was born, like I said, before my time. I didn't know about him. I actually knew about him more than I knew about Claude Humphrey. And so that's looking up a little more on him and watching some more clips was really cool. And, because, he played with Texas in college, and with Texas, he actually averaged 20 tackles a game for his career as well. What they had said.
Wow.
It's like unheard of, because now 13 tackles to 15 tackles a game is superb, and that was a bad game for him, So he was there on my Mount Rushmore. The next guy, he was one of my favorite players to watch in the 90s for the defense, and that's Jesse Tuggle.
Nice.
Known as the Hammer. He played his whole career with the Falcons as well. And I think he was there probably 15 years. I can't remember exactly. I didn't write it down or anything, but he was the Falcons Ring of Honor in 2004, 5-time Pro Bowler in 92, 94, 95, 97, and 98. He was a 3-time All-Pro in 91, 94, and 98. And he was also, member of the Dirtybirds, and that was just great to watch. A fun time for me. I always watch those games and, love watching those. And then about him, an interesting fact, when I was just doing some review, I didn't know this, but he actually had the most tackles in the 90s by any player. He had 1,293 tackles in the 90s. So that was a really cool fact that I found, and I was like, whoa. He was already on my list before I knew that, but I was, that definitely needs to be mentioned. And then Grady Jarrett, who is one of their defensive tackles now, that's his dad. Jesse Tuggle is his father. So,
oh wow,
another interesting fact I didn't know and would have never thought, until I was going through and looking into this. So, that was very interesting for me. But he's one of those hard-nosed players. Whatever you asked him to do, he would do. Another big reason, lifetime Falcon. And he was one of the no-brainers. Like when I was thinking about this, he went on there, and there was no question about it. So, and then so my last guy before I do the face of the franchise on Mount Rushmore is gonna be Julio Jones. Most people have heard of him. He's pretty solid. One of the best receivers in the game, 6-time Pro Bowler, 2012, and then 2014 to 2018. And I believe 2013 was the year he got injured. So, and still had over 500 yards in like 5 games. But the injury is the only reason that he didn't have a Pro Bowl year then.
Right.
2-time first-team All-Pro in 2015 and 2016. And then he was a second-team All-Pro in 2017. And in 2015, he was the NFL reception leader and yard leader. He had 136 receptions and 1,877 yards. And then in 2018, he led the league in receiving yards as well. And then, to date, he has 751 receptions and 11,522 receiving yards. So he's just one of those standout players. Hopefully, and we got him an extension, but hopefully he's a lifer for the Falcons as well. But he's just one of those. Shutting him down is not an easy task, and generally when you shut him down, it's not a one-on-one thing.
Right.
Man, just some of the catches I've seen him make are just crazy. And he was one I was debating face of the franchise with, just because of what he's done. But he's just been rock solid, and just a joy to watch and see what he's done over the years and see what he's going to keep doing. He came in with Roddy White, and the two of them were teamed up, and just tough, playing for those guys. And then now you got him and Ridley playing well. I did like Sanu, but Sanu's with the Patriots now. So, but I just think Julio's, first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion. One of the best receivers in the game, one of the best hands in the game, and he can just go up and get it if you need him to. And so he's well deserving of that Mount Rushmore.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then last but not least, I have my face of the franchise. And for me, that's going to be Matt Ryan. And like I said, I easily could have put him and Julio, vice versa. But, it's hard. You can get good receivers. It's hard to get a franchise quarterback, that's been really consistent. Even as a rookie, he came in and performed. And he's had a lot of different offensive coordinators, and he still put up the numbers. He still learned the offense. He's not one of those guys you see, complain or argue. If you do see him saying something, it's to make the team better, and because hey, this is going to help us. This is what we need to do to be better. MVP in 2016, he was the Offensive Player of the Year, the Burt Bell Award winner, first team All-Pro, and he had the best passer rating in 2016. He's the 2008, he was the Rookie of the Year, 4-time Pro Bowler, and already to date, he owns most of the Falcons franchise passing records.
Yep.
But like I said, that's my big thing with him. I remember people were talking about, he had a down year last year, and I was like, he had 4,900 passing yards, and there's certain things, when you look at the team as being bad, and then they try to take that out of the QB. The defense was injured a lot last year.
Yeah. You guys got destroyed the first game of the season, man. You lost half your starters.
Yeah.
It seemed like
we lost Keanu Neal, we lost Dion Jones. It's just been brutal. And
I love that Dion Jones, man. I like that guy.
Yeah, he's quick. I like him too. But yeah, Ryan. No matter who's came in there, he's put up numbers. And that's what you want out of a quarterback. You want consistency. You want a leader. He's been a leader. Sometimes, he does force it a little bit, but when you got to score points because your defense is giving up a ton, you got to take those chances.
Yeah.
Brett Favre, best quarterbacks of all time, was known for that. But you know what? A lot of times it worked out for him. And, most of the time it does work out for Ryan too. But
I like quarterback. Right now we have Kirk Cousins, and if it's 3rd and 8, he'll take the safe dump off to the running back who'll get 4 yards. And it's we needed 8 yards. Why are you throwing? The guy's not going to get he's not going to get the 8 yards on that bad pass, to the whatever, the out route by the running back,
Yeah, and that's the thing he's good on. He's good at notifying, calling audibles if need be. And him and Julio talk really well, and, you always see Julio if he's running a out or something. He's past the line. He knows where he needs to get. And they just have a good chemistry.
Yeah, for sure.
You could have flip-flopped either one of those guys, and it makes perfect sense. But so with the rarity of having a franchise quarterback and, what he's done for the Falcons with the consistency, hopefully he can bring them a championship. Don't think it's going to be this year. But,
quite the story if he does do it this year.
If they played like they did last week, the rest of the year, you're talking 9-7, and there's so many good teams.
There is.
But and it's not like in baseball and all, or where your divisional record comes into play as much. Because most of their division games are here at the end of the year.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't play a division game until week 10.
Right.
So it's great.
So if you finish strong, man, all you got to do is finish strong, get hot at the right time.
Yeah, and even if they don't make the playoffs, it'll be a good foundation for next year. A lot of people are, talking about Quinn and this and that, and I'm like, I like Quinn. I think he had a lot on his plate after that Super Bowl run, and after that happened, and Shanahan left, and then he thought he had to take over the defense, and then he was doing all the coaching, and he just had so much on his plate. And finally, when he kind of just let some of the coaches do their job, they actually started, playing well last week. And so even if they don't make the playoffs, I'm not one of those bandwagon fans. I mean,
right.
I was a fan when they were garbage. I was a fan when, had the Dirtybirds, and when they went through the Vick thing, the good Vick when he first arrived, and when, all that happened, and, he was in prison and all, but it's just been one of those things, and I think Quinn, if he keeps it going, he might be able to save his job, but ultimately I do think he'll be gone. But really with me, I hope not, because it's just another coach, another coordinator, another system to learn.
Yep.
And you're looking at 2-3 years, of trying to get something going, because not many people come in with, like Shanahan did, and light the offense up, after a few years. So, with Cutterback, Ryan did have that chemistry with him from him being the OC previously. So,
yep.
I'm just hoping that, we get something consistent. And, I thought Dan Quinn was going to be that. And, if he can right the ship the rest of the year and show, he's willing to let the coaches do their job, maybe he'll be back and they'll be, feed on that, because I know the players love him.
Right.
And they're actually fighting for him in the locker room, and I've read a bunch of reports on that they're wanting him to keep his job. And supposedly Arthur Blank is, taking that into consideration, but ultimately they need to play well the rest of the year for him to do that. And, that win and how they played against New Orleans was a big part, because from what I heard, if they didn't play well or it wasn't close, then he was done then.
That was the rumor. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Did they, I felt like did they have 6 sacks in that game, and they had 7 going into it or something like that? Yeah, they had
a lot. They played well, and they mixed up the scheme, and changed the packages in and out. And I mean, so, got some fresh guys in there, and, but yeah, they've just played well as a team, and, which is what they should have done all year. When you're in the pros, if a couple guys go out, it's the next man up. You just gotta deal with it. That's why you're supposed to have backups, and why you get paid millions of dollars. So
right.
Hey man, I absolutely, every once in a while we'll step in and say something about our, what if we wanted to add something. I don't think we have to today. Your Mount Rushmore was spot on. Actually, you named one guy that I'd never heard of before, and the other guy I'd never heard of before. The linebacker you named, I think he must be a linebacker if he averaged 18 tackles a game.
Yeah, the Tommy Nobis.
Yeah, I never heard of him. He never came up in my research. So that I really like the fact that you went deep into the franchise and pulled those couple guys out, and you hit all the guys that. I mean, Tuggle to me was definitely somebody I thought should have been on the Mount Rushmore. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else you brought up that I was really happy about. I wondered if you'd throw Dion in there, Michael Vick. Those are kind of couple guys that you kind of wondered about. I like the way you mix them in, and they're definitely better than some of the other guys I had on my that I had on my list as possible, like honorable mentions.
Yeah, I had my secondary honorable mentions. I was trying to I had them all listed and was trying to see who fit in the honorable mentions, and
I love the way you broke it down, though. Couldn't argue with you at all.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I enjoyed it. Going back, doing more research on the history, and like I said, the Claude Humphrey, he's somebody I hadn't heard of, really, and just going back and reading up on him, it was really cool. So
awesome. Well, I think that's going to do it for the Falcons Mount Rushmore, man. You did an awesome job, and if you want to hang on for 1 second, we'll just end this episode and we'll talk for a quick minute and we'll let you get going.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, that's going to bring episode 48 to a close. Falcons Mount Rushmore with Tyler at SikWicked Sports. Thanks for joining us again.
Skol Brothers out.